Welcome to a new edition of Quarantine Catch Up. I am your host, Tommy Rinaldi. As always, I am joined by Chris Famularo. And our guest today, we have one of my first friends from Seton Hall and a person that I could always go to for a good conversation. Frank Frasco, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Glad to be here. And that really makes me feel good, that first friend. You always said that, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. You were always one of the first people to put yourself out there as a freshman for me, and I've always appreciated that. And now I appreciate you having you on the show. How have you been feeling during this quarantine?
I'm doing good. So I was in Florida when it all hit.
Hmm.
And right after that, so on St. Patrick's Day, I ended up having to fly home because the Disney College program, which is where I was interning for, they canceled all their interns. So flew back up there with the expectation that I was going to come back in like middle of April.
Hmm.
But then right after that, 2 weeks later, they said college program's canceled. And I just stayed busy, just doing projects around the house. Watched a lot of good movies, like a lot of interesting ones, and just kept active.
That's awesome, man. We really love to hear that. You said you've been watching a lot of movies. What have you been watching? What have you been listening to during this quarantine?
All right, so I kind of made a long list. I'll just give the top ones that I've seen.
Okay.
So me and my dad, my brother, we finally finished Pirates of the Caribbean. That was big. Uh, I've probably watched all the Disney films, and I say all now because I saw the Black Cauldron, which
Oh,
is
wow.
yeah,
Nice
yeah,
deep cut there.
yep. Then another one that I really liked was Michael Clayton. That was really really good. That was with George Clooney. That was actually nominated for Best Picture, I believe, in 2009. If I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. Then I finally showed my brother, my younger brother, the entire Star Wars Skywalker saga.
Love it.
So he really enjoyed that. The French Connection, The Usual Suspects was really good. Bombshell I liked a lot. Aladdin, the live action version. Chicago, The Artist was great. And then I just showed my parents like some like the newer like Disney movies that they never had a chance to see. Coco, Moana, enjoyed it.
That's really awesome. A lot of those movies, you have a nice balance between newer stuff, older stuff, young audience, older audience. Uh, what was your favorite movie out of all those movies you just listed?
Well, I just want to say that I think the epitome of me watching movies is quarantine. I went in 2 days. I went from Sleepless in Seattle to Fatal Attraction. I don't think you can get. I would say I'll just give you my top three.
Okay.
The Artist, beautiful movie. Chicago, love that. And I would have to say I'm between like The French Connection and Training Day. I think those two good movies are really, really good.
Those are all some solid picks. And our friendship really grew because of our love for movies. And I really want to know, where does that love of movies come from? Is it watching movies with your family? Is it just because as you were growing up by your like doing your own thing, that love really came to you? Which one was it?
It's family. So I had two people in my life that I watch movies with the most. Is my grandpa, I
Hmm.
called him Popeye, and then my uncle Eddie. But I'll start with my grandpa. So he just got me into the love of like searching up the history behind movies. He bought me this. I don't know if you guys know this film critic, Leonard Maltin. I actually have his
Of
last copy,
course.
Leonard
Nice.
Maltin.
Oh wow.
So he would get all of the Leonard Maltin books, and whenever we would watch a movie, primarily westerns, he loved westerns. We would like search up how many stars Maltin gave it, and at the time when I was like 8 or 9, I thought Maltin was like the god. So I thought, if he gave it 3.5 stars, it's a great movie.
Yeah.
I didn't understand there were other film critics, but yeah, I just started to really enjoy just the emotion behind movies, and it really started, I guess, with my grandpa and Western. So when I got older with my uncle, he got me into like more of the action movies, Speed, Die Hard, and then moving on when I got a little bit older, I had to wait for like Tarantino films and Scorcese. And then senior year of high school, that's when I was like, what should you do when you grow up? And I'm like, I want to do what makes me happy, and I don't want to be in an office every single day. I always think of like Mr. Incredible's, like just typing away at his little desk. I always joke around about that with my mom. So yeah, I just wanted to go into film. I took 2 film classes in 2 semesters my final senior year, and that's the rest is history pretty much.
That's really awesome to hear. And fam, I know you love your TV, you love your movies. Where does your love of TV and movies come from? Is it, again, a family thing, or is it something that you really just grew up doing yourself?
Frankly, it's really more so myself. I mean, my parents were more interested in, I mean, they're both more TV people. Like my mom was always like, she loves like day dramas, and Grey's Anatomy is her favorite show of all time. So it's like, she loves that kind of TV, like almost a little bit soapy stuff. Like I grew up and like Guiding Light was playing on in the house, and like a bunch of those hospital dramas. My dad more so was like almost not reality TV based, but like that really like really trash like Discovery Planet or a Discovery Channel like Mountain Men and
Yeah.
Ice Road Truckers kind of TV stuff. So I didn't really have anyone. I would say the one person in my family who's really, really into movies is my aunt, Barbara. I call her Aunt B. And she like is like a person like Frank that will just watch a movie at any point in the day and can binge like 5 or 6 movies in a day. And I'm just like that. I love movies, but that is exhausting to me. Like I can maybe, if I'm really, really dedicated, watch at most 3 movies in a day. And then after that, I'm pretty burned. But I don't know. My love of TV kind of came from sports, I want to say, because I grew up watching a lot of SportsCenter, watching a lot of live sports. And then just as I got older, and then once I started going to school for television, I was like, I knew I love sports television. I love live sports and stuff like that. But movies, I mean, war movies were really what got me into film. I mean, my top 10 movies has, I think it's half war movies, frankly. My favorite movie of all time is Saving Private Ryan. So that right there should give you an understanding of what kind of movies and why I like film and stuff like that.
I just took that out of my top 10, unfortunately.
Oh.
I have to update my list.
It'll never ever fall out of my top. It'll never fall out of my top 3.
It's tough. But yeah.
It's not in my top 10, but it's easily the best war movie of all time. Even going back and watching things like Dunkirk, 1917, a lot of great war movies, especially in recent memory. Saving Private Ryan always stays at the top of that war movie list for me.
I mean, like, war movies or something, because I always, like, we had so many classes, film classes together at Seton Hall, so, like, war movies was always something I talked to you guys about. It's like Saving Private Ryan, Full Metal Jacket, 1917 most recently is in there. Dunkirk is not my top 10, but it's definitely up there for war movies. Apocalypse Now, like, I could name a bunch. Hurt Locker, like, it's a never-ending list of war movies that I just deeply, deeply admire.
And going into movies that we deeply admire, you were talking about, Frank, a lot of Oscar movies within your catching up through quarantine of all these new movies for yourself. Do you usually go toward an Oscar movie, or do you try to have this broad expansion? I know we have a good friend, Chris Russo. He's very by the book, very traditionalist, very Oscar movie centric. I wanted to know if you do gravitate more towards the Oscar movies or just everything in general.
I do. I do gravitate toward the Oscar movies. It's actually weird, the left frame or the right frame. I didn't place this on purpose, but I have my little brother Oscar. I'm obsessed with Oscars. At least I was when I was a lot younger. I gravitated more, towards other, film award shows. But the Oscars is always number one. Like, the Oscars is just as important to me as the Super Bowl. But yeah, so I tend to, at least recently, I've been trying to watch almost every single Best Picture winner since like the 70s, just so I can have clear. Yeah. So it's kind of tough. Some movies I don't really want to see that are Best Pictures, or
I was gonna say, aren't there some snubs in there that really aren't that fun?
Yeah. So I think the biggest snub that would upset most people if they didn't know, because it's AFI Top 100, is that Saving Private Ryan didn't win Best Picture.
98.
Yeah, it lost to Shakespeare in Love. I'm 95% sure.
Yes, it did.
That was a big. Yeah, that was a big.
Did.
So that's one of the biggest snubs. But yeah, I gravitate primarily towards Oscar films, and what I do actually for fun is whenever I see like a big film that I know has won a lot of awards, I'll watch the movie, and just for fun, I'll go on YouTube and just watch like the awards. So for example, when I saw Raging Bull for the first time, I watched De Niro accept the awards. Even it's 2 minutes, but it's still pretty cool.
So going on with Oscars and stuff, what did you see all of this year's recent Oscars Best Picture winners? Have you seen all of them?
Yes, no, not all of them. I saw 6 out of 9. My favorite script was the one that won. Jojo Rabbit was really, really enjoyable. But I haven't seen Little Women.
It's a great film.
Okay, and my dad was watching Parasite on the flight back. So yeah, I had to move out. It was like a whole big thing. But on the flight back from Florida a couple months ago, my dad was watching Parasite. It seemed really interesting, so I really want to see that. Joker, I'm not. I don't really. I have mixed thoughts about Joker, but I'm probably not going to watch that one for quite some time. But yeah, besides those 3, I've seen every other one.
In my opinion, Joker is the most missable film from the entire list of Best Picture winners.
I think that's a fair assessment.
The one that you could 100% go without seeing and be 100% fine. Parasite, I think you should see as soon as possible. Soon as possible. I mean, on Hulu, go ahead and watch it.
Yeah, that director would be me at the Oscars, just spanking like Scorcese. That guy was awesome. I really thought 1917 was going to win, so I was a little disappointed, but I can't be biased because I haven't seen Parasite yet.
I highly recommend Parasite. It was my favorite movie of the year, in my opinion. It's a perfect film. It's not necessarily my favorite film, but start to finish, I thought it was near flawless, if not flawless. And you talk about Bong Joon-ho. He mentioned Marty Scorsese in his acceptance speech. And I think that's a good transition into who are some of your favorite directors? We could go top 5, top 3, but Frank, we'll start with you with that one.
Yeah, so I just updated my top 5. So I would say Scorsese, even though he doesn't have a lot of work and I haven't seen a lot of his work so far, Alejandro Inarritu, Birdman, and The Revenant. Then I would say Tarantino. I really like David O. Russell. Sean Baker's new, but I think he's growing. Robert Zemeckis, Damien Chazelle, and then I'll round it out with Spielberg.
That's a really great list. Was it Sean Baker? What has he done?
So he only did one film that I actually saw. I think he's done 3 films. He's like in his mid-40s, but I think he's grown. He's a very small independent filmmaker. But he did The Florida Project with Willem Dafoe, which
I know you love that one.
Yeah, I walked out. That's in my top 10 now. I just made it in. And I walked out of that with my buddies back in my first days in college program. It's like my mind was blown. It was one of the most realistic dramas I've ever seen in my life. And that's when I definitively loved dramas, and I made that my number 1 genre.
That's awesome. And I think that's a really great list. You have a lot of new names, a lot of names from the past that are still cranking out great movies. Fam, do you have a top 3, a top 5?
Yeah, I was thinking while Frank was giving his answer, but I was Spielberg would probably be my number 1, because Saving Private Ryan, Jaws, Jurassic Park, it's like all these movies I grew up on is just, there's no way anyone could beat them, frankly. I mean, I love it. Second one would be Christopher Nolan. Huge fan of the Dark Knight saga. Interstellar is also one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, Tenet is supposed to be amazing soon, if that ever comes out. There's Inception. There's a slew of Christopher Nolan films. Third one would probably be Quentin Tarantino. The older I get, the more I enjoy his films. I still, to this day, appreciate his newer films than his older films, but I grow more fond of them the older I get. I still think Django Unchained is my favorite Tarantino film. It's just incredible. After that, I can't really. David Coogler has really been working in
Ryan Coogler.
Ryan Coogler has really been working in there as well. Because Fruitvale Station, I've watched it a couple times now, and it always breaks my heart. It's just so incredibly powerful. And I'm excited to see what other projects he puts out there. Jordan Peele is also really getting close because I wish he would put more projects out. But
yeah, he has his hand in a lot of things, producing for Twilight Zone, writing for a bunch of different things, horror, and he wants to get into like Akira and other anime, Japanese culture movies. Both really great lists. For me, my number 1, Chris, you mentioned it, was Christopher Nolan. I've watched all of his movies except for his first one called Following. I think He is a master at the plot twist. I think he doesn't spoon feed you with anything that he puts out. My favorites are Prestige and The Dark Knight. I think those movies are amazing. Number 2 is Edgar Wright. I think his attention to detail is second to none. Just from like Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, where you have all these different things between the transitions and the animation within it, and a movie like Baby Driver that I really liked when it came out. I saw that in theater. He doesn't really get a lot of box office, but that was something I was so glad to see in theaters. Setting the entire movie to a soundtrack, putting that in mind while writing the movie, I think is something that's really admirable. And the Cornetto trilogy with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost is amazing. Another one I really like is Denis Villeneuve. He's done Arrival. He's done Prisoners. He's done Enemy. He did Blade Runner 2049, which I didn't get to see, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. And he's coming out with the new movie Dune. That's supposed to be a next big box office hit. Spielberg, I don't think you could deny his talent, from Schindler's List to Hook to E.T., Jaws. He's done everything. He's done it for so many years, and he's honestly one of the best of all time. And included in that best of all time list is Scorcese. I grew up watching Goodfellas, and that's something I know Frank has a big admiration for as well. Being an Italian family, and that's just something we grew up on. Going into your love of Scorsese, what do you think about the transition from his mob movies to what he's doing now, which is more, I believe, passion projects? He did Silence and a couple others where he's kind of making that transition from the one thing we really know him for and into these other types of movies.
I just want to start off by just showing what I just put up. I don't know if you guys can see it well.
That's awesome.
I just put that up. Yeah, I'm just obsessed with his mafia films. I think his genre is gangster, but it's really drama because he takes a gangster type of character and you kind of empathize with the character. And I like in most Scorsese films, which is why he's my number one. I like that at the end of the film, there's never really a happy ending with his films. It's very realistic. So I think he's diving into different sectors, business, like Bad Guys in Business with Wolf of Wall Street or Silence, which I still haven't gotten the chance to see. But I think he's really adapting to, especially with The Irishman, which I did see. It was a little bit too long, but he took what Netflix gave him and he made it a 3.5 hour film. So I think he's doing a good job right now, but he's definitely going towards a different track ever since, I would say, like Casino, I would say The Departed too, a little bit too.
Yeah, I really love The Departed, and it goes into that theme of there's no happy ending. Everybody that you root for within that movie is essentially dead by the end of it, and it's tough to watch, but he really deserved that win for Best Picture, I believe back in 06 or 07. And going off of our love of these different directors, who is someone, this goes to both of you, who is someone that you hope to emulate in your either TV making or filmmaking process? I mean, I talked about Christopher Nolan and Edgar Wright. If I could emulate anyone, it would be those two people. Their attention to detail, the way they write a script. They're someone I really would like to make my movies after in the future. What about for you, Chris, whether it's TV or film?
Well, for myself, I don't entirely see myself as a filmmaker. I see more, if anything, if I were to do independent projects, I'd be more of a documentarian, frankly, because that comes kind of with my background being a history minor as well. Someone who I greatly admire in their projects and their storytelling and their shots is Ava DuVernay. I get chills thinking about 13th, like right now. She is so incredibly talented, knowledgeable, smart in the way that she delivers her messaging, and she's straightforward about it. It's never like the message of the story is lost in translation. It's always understood, and it's easy to understand, and it's a strong-willed message. I think, frankly, I would be humbled if I could ever make something that would be related to Ava DuVernay. I think she's just a standout creator when it comes to historical documentaries, investigative pieces. I can't say enough good things about her.
That's a really great choice. And Frank, let's hear from you. Who's a storyteller that you would like to emulate in your filmmaking career?
I would say Tarantino in terms of just his nonlinear way of writing. I think he was one of the first directors and writers that showed that a film doesn't have to be, beginning, middle, end. You can just bounce around. For realism, I would say Sean Baker. I just want to be a writer that makes very, very realistic dialogue. That's very, very important in a script for me. Very realistic dialogue. And a very realistic ending. And I think that David O. Russell is another person that comes into mind in terms of writing to that degree. So I would say Tarantino in the way that he takes a script and does whatever he wants with it, directing style. And then I think in terms of like intense dialogue, David O. Russell. Because, his dialogue and his scripts are, for his movies, are just, they're funny, they're dramatic, they're sad. It's all over the place.
He did American Hustle, correct?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, I love that movie. I love Silver Linings Playbook. I think those are three great names to try to emulate. And we've talked about your love for mafia movies, and we've kind of hinted at your love for Disney. First, let's go into why you like Disney so much as well. As you said, you were doing the Disney College program. As we were hanging out in PTV around the studio, we would call you Walt Disney himself. What really has drawn you to Disney movies?
At first, it was, the fact that my mom was really into Disney, and she got me into it. So we would go to Disney almost every single year, if not every single year, just once during teachers' convention, so around November. And then she was a big fan of Snow White, and then I was really, really into Toy Story, like super. So I would always have a Buzz Lightyear little doll with me whenever I went to bed. I would just carry around all the time. So in terms of like what means more to me, that's really, really hard because now I'm an older, I'm 23. So I appreciate, I would say, the mobster movies and the more dramatic movies, but Disney will always have a special part of my heart. And I love just geeking out, just knowing all the films and just watching all the ones or rewatching the old ones that I haven't seen in years. But when I got older, I was at a Disney hotel and I saw a guy, his name was I'll just say John. He had like a SUNY college. And I'm like, oh, why do you have a college? Like, why isn't it like a hometown name tag? He was like, oh, this is the Disney College program. He told me about it. And I knew I wanted to do it right then and there. And I applied the middle of sophomore year and I got it. And then I did my first college program the first semester of my junior year. And then I did it right after I graduated. So.
And I would love to hear your experience about the Disney College program, because obviously you have this infatuation with Disney. And I feel like that's a good stepping stone to get your name within the mix of Disney jobs and Disney careers. So what has been your experience working there?
Yeah, so I'll just dive into my second half of my college program, or my college program experience, which is what started last August. I got to work for the new Star Wars land. We call it Galaxy's Edge, which is just incredible. I got to open up the two rides, or help open up the two rides. I was part of this like management team. The Smuggler's Run Millennium Falcon ride, and then the newest ride that went right along at the same time that Episode 9 came out, called Rise of the Resistance. That was the greatest 7-month stint of working I could have ever asked for, because they give you your own story, your own Star Wars story, and everything's immersive, from like who you are, your background, to I even have I have this, like, we call this, it's on a soda bottle, it's called the Cola Orb. So it's interesting. So everything's themed, and it was just so much fun. So you like, they put you about 5 miles away from Disney property. You have to live with, I lived with like 5 other guys and in an apartment. So that was just a lot of fun, and you just get to meet like a lot of different people. So I really, really recommend anyone listening or watching to apply, because it's a lot of fun.
And that kind of plays into understanding the behind the scenes of a lot of things. I mean, you're understanding the behind the scenes of the theme parks and everything of that nature. And you mentioned enjoying the behind the scenes and how things work within film. Are there certain videos that you really like to watch? You said you'll watch the Oscar speeches and everything of that nature. I remember when Kubo and the Two Strings came out, I watched all the behind the scenes for that because I find that very interesting. Is there something that you've watched in the past that you really enjoyed when it comes to behind the scenes?
Behind the scenes, let me just think about that one. I would say like any major productions that I was able to like watch behind the scenes, like for example, Chicago, I got to watch the bonus features about that, and like that was really, really cool to see. Like Jurassic Park, like I would always try, and like usually they would come along with a DVD that like we would rent at Blockbuster, so it would just be great. R.I.P.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, so it just, I would say I like watching more of montages, like the best acting of this decade or the most beautiful 10 minutes in movie history. One of them being Birdman, when he walks out, he has all those lights dazzling. That's just gives me the chills. So those really motivate me to become a better filmmaker or a better writer.
Yeah, for sure. And that shot that you're talking about from Birdman is absolutely phenomenal. But you talk about watching montages and compilations of best actors, and a running joke that we've had in the past is your hatred for Jake Gyllenhaal. And I want to get to the bottom of this because Jake Gyllenhaal, in my opinion, is one of the better actors working today. And I just want to see where you're coming from of why you don't like this gentleman.
All right. I would say, all right, there's two movies that I didn't like that I saw for the first time that I guess I'm just like, who is this guy? And it's completely biased. I haven't seen most of his work, but I saw in fifth grade October Sky, and I didn't really appreciate dramas and, the scientific stuff, which I do now. So I'm like, this is a boring movie. And then I saw it, and I'm a big Rocky and, Rocky guy, Creed, stuff like that. So when Southpaw came out, I think I saw it when I was a senior going into like the end of my senior year. I don't know why. Maybe I was in a bad mood watching it, or I just didn't. I don't remember that entire movie at all.
I was going to say Southpaw's it's not like a phenomenal boxing movie, but like it's a pretty good movie. Like it's super depressing, but it's also Jake Gyllenhaal puts in a performance in that film. Like I mean, it baffles me that you don't like Jake Gyllenhaal because the only way I knew I liked Jake Gyllenhaal was watching his performance in Jarhead. He's incredible. Even in his less known works, like have you guys ever seen the movie Bubble Boy?
Yeah,
Bubble Boy is
heard that one.
It's so funny, and Jake Gyllenhaal puts out a phenomenal performance. And Nightcrawler is the next film that makes me just amazed at Jake Gyllenhaal's performance. I mean, the dude, I don't know if he's a method actor or if he just fully envelops himself. He's good. I don't get it. I just don't understand.
Actually, it's funny you said that because Nightcrawler was a one freshman year I watched. I also couldn't stand that one.
What the hell, Frank?
Looking back, I would appreciate it, but then also I'm watching The Dark Knight, and I'm like, where's Katie Holmes? I'm like, oh, Maggie Gyllenhaal. I'm like, oh, that's his sister. I'm like,
oh my god.
It's just a family thing. It's just the Gyllenhaals irk you.
It's a running joke, but it's
Listen, you're allowed to have that opinion. It's not a wrong opinion. That's how you feel, and I understand it. I mean, the movies that Chris mentioned, there's even more movies. I thought Enemy. I thought there's so many good ones.
Lovely Bones.
Source Code, Lovely Bones.
I think Brothers. Is that a good one, or is this? I've only seen the scene where Tobey Maguire just goes insane.
He does go insane in that movie. That was terrifying. But Prisoners, he's in Zodiac. He does a lot of really good work.
Wait, Frank, you watched End of Watch. Did you not like it, even though it had Jake Gyllenhaal? Or oh wait, no, you said you watched Training Day. Never mind.
Yeah.
End of Watch is a heartbreaker.
End of Watch is also really good.
And Jake Gyllenhaal's in that one. But let's transition into some actors that we actually do like, and some of the performances that you've really grown to love and latch onto. I mean, you see a lot of these performances in those compilations because I watch those too. And there's some scenes where people just break your heart, or they win your heart. There's so many different ways that an actor could really, or actress can grab onto your feelings and tug at them the way they want to. So Frank, let's hear some of your favorite actors.
All right, so I'll give you my favorite actors. So my top 5: Tom Hanks, De Niro, Christian Bale, Bradley Cooper's getting up there right now, and Leo. So those are my top 5. In terms of performances, I just give a straight top 10. These are just all over the board. Andrew Garfield in Social Network. It was a shame he wasn't nominated.
Yeah.
Emma Stone in Birdman. I think she was better in Birdman than she was in La La Land. I know she won, but I thought she was more emotional to me.
That's fair.
Bradley Cooper, Silver Linings Playbook.
Fantastic.
Matt Damon, Good Will Hunting. Christian Bale, The Fighter. De Niro, Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. And Julia Roberts, Erin Brockovich. She was something else. She was amazing.
I still have to watch that movie. I've heard nothing but good things with that. You mentioned Christian Bale, and Joaquin Phoenix in his acceptance speech, I believe for the Golden Globes, was asking Christian Bale, why don't you just turn in one bad performance? Because if you look out through his career, he really has not missed a performance. I mean, he's been in some rough movies like Terminator Salvation and stuff like that, but he still gives the utmost performance that he believes that character deserves. And Chris, I'd like to hear some of your favorite actors, whether it be in TV or movies.
I'll just stick with movies because I think that's kind of more of the basis here. Tom Hanks is up there, probably my most favorite. Can't think of a movie I don't like him in. I'm a pretty big fan of Brad Pitt. I really enjoy him just as a whole. I know he's been in some not super great movies, but more recently I just enjoy him when he's on screen. Leonardo DiCaprio also definitely up there. Denzel Washington. Trying to think of some newer actors or actresses. She was also in Little Women, and she was in
Florence Pugh?
Yeah, no. Well, yeah, she's great.
Saoirse Ronan?
Saoirse
Ronan?
No, yeah, I was talking about Florence Pugh.
She was in Midsummer.
And she was in Little Women. But also Saoirse Ronan. Both of those two actresses are incredible.
Yeah.
Like, I think they are just standout up-and-coming actresses. Emma Stone is another actress that I highly admire for her acting ability. And I'm going to leave it at that.
Those are both great lists. I'll add, I mean, I could agree with just about all those people for sure. I really like Ryan Gosling. I really like Lakeith Stanfield. I like Brie Larson. You mentioned Florence Pugh. She's one of my favorite people right now. I really like Michelle Williams, Blue Valentine, and Manchester by the Sea. She ruined me both times. That scene with her and Casey Affleck when they meet up again in Manchester by the Sea, it's one of the saddest scenes I've ever seen. I don't know how I didn't cry during that, but it definitely, like, it just brought me down a whole emotional step. And I think that's what movies are really about. It's making you feel something, and some actors are just really good at doing that. So Frank, we've gotten to talk about our favorite movies, our favorite actors, our favorite directors. I kind of want to go into our experience together from PTV, from WSOU. You were a producer at Pirate TV. You did a lot with WSOU. I'd love to hear your experiences of how you got into both.
Yeah, so I mean, all three of us are connected in very different ways, from filmmaking to WSOU to PTV to sports to everything. So I would say I got into PTV like right off the gate, freshman year. I talked to the seniors at the time. They were really, really nice. They asked me to be a sports anchor at like the end of the first semester. I was nervous. I was so nervous. Be on for 3 minutes. And then that just transitioned. And then I worked with you guys. We were associate producers or producers in trainings under Annuar. That was junior year. So that was a lot of fun. With WSOU, right off the gate, I just wanted to get involved with sports. Sports broadcasting, just talking sports. You know, I had played basketball in my life, so I wanted to still be involved with a giant Big East basketball team. So I joined that second semester of my of my freshman year, and I just ran with that. Had a lot of good times, a lot of good calls, and a lot of great memories.
Speaking of those memories, I mean, you say you get to go to all these really great D1 basketball games, being in the Big East, going to the Big East tournament, everything of that nature. I would love to hear some of your favorite calls, your favorite games, whether it be for Pirate TV or WSOU.
I would say senior night for Seton Hall Villanova before the Big East tournament is memorable. That was a really memorable night, a lot of fun. I would say that the best game I was at, though, I was beat writing. It was Seton Hall, Kentucky. Matt Ambrose and Bob Tudor were on the call. Just fantastic. I was tweeting away when Kel hit that three, and then, it's just insane. So that was one of my favorites. And then I always enjoyed Hall line over everything.
Mm-hmm.
So Bam and I were on a couple of good Hall lines. So I would say one of the saddest ones, obviously, was the last Hall line Bam and I were on with Kepler as well. And, it was sad to sign off, but that was a tough one. That was a hard pill to swallow that it was over. But those were like my top moments, I would say.
And being a big fan of Big East sports, going to Madison Square Garden, I'd love to hear both of your thoughts of what it was like to be there for the first time and being seen as professional press as you're there and enjoying the atmosphere that MSG always brings. Fam, we'll start with you.
Well, I had actually never been in Madison Square Garden prior to my press coverage, which is really, really weird to me, especially being a New York sports fan. But my first time being in Madison Square Garden was all three of ours junior year for the Big East tournament. And it was just a surreal experience. Like, I had never really gone into New York City before, like without a parental figure or anything like that. So like going in with equipment and like being completely in a suit and like having all of our equipment and going through the press entrance and getting I still have my press passes to this day. I mean, it's a surreal experience. And then what's even crazier is the people you see while walking through the press entrance into the back. Like Tommy, you and I saw Gus Johnson. We saw a bunch of, Fox Sports guys. We saw the Big East media team. We met a bunch of other people from other schools, which was even cooler. Like we met people from St. John's and from Villanova and from Georgetown. It was a really, really cool experience. I never got the opportunity to go to Madison Square Garden for WSOU, but I had gone another time for PTV, which was that Kentucky game in 2018. Easily one of the best basketball games I've ever seen in person. It was just unreal. Just incredible sporting moment that will forever be in my memory. But other than that, like I had the opportunity to travel to Nebraska. For WSOU, I went with Dagan Hughes. We had actually a really, really good call. Even though Seton Hall lost against Nebraska, we had a really good call. But then what happened after that was not great. Getting stuck in Nebraska, having 2 of our flights canceled back home, then having to fly further west to Denver, getting stuck in Denver another night, having to fly to D.C., take a train to Newark, take an Uber back to Seton Hall. I didn't get home until 3 days later. So a lot of really good memories between PTV and WSOU.
Of course. And Frank, I'd love to hear your experience of being at MSG, whether it's for the first time or for the first couple times, getting to cover these Big East basketball games.
Yeah, so it was one of my first times. I had been to like a Knicks game casually, but it's surreal to transition from a fan of, Gus Johnson or these athletes to a professional. So that, I wouldn't say it took a lot of time to readjust, but it is like a mental click in your mind that you have to say, well, I'm here to broadcast a game, to do a job. So it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of great experiences with it, from the backstage area to, with all the food that they had for us to all the media guides. I mean, They provide you with so much information. It's amazing what MSG and the Big East provides. So it was a lot of fun. Traveling was also really cool. WSU did a great job, as Fam knows, in terms of, giving us a little stipend to pay for our meals. They were just great. I mean, WSU is one of the most fantastic organizations, not only at Seton Hall, but I think in the Northeast region for colleges. So they you can't get better than going to a hotel that's paid for just to call a basketball game. Just to sit in the hotel room, and I had a lot of different people that I was traveling with, and just to watch sports while you're preparing for a game. That's the life.
Yeah, for sure. And we talk about your sports broadcasting. We talked about you directing your senior year, and we talked about your hospitality working at the Disney College program. What is your dream job? You kind of have your hands in all these different things, and I want to know where your main goal would be, regardless of money, regardless of anything. What would you love to do the most?
I mean, anything in terms of entertainment, but the end goal and the dream and the patient's goal is film, and primarily in writing and editing. I would love to be a part of the production process, but I've always really enjoyed pre and post. So, I mean, that's the goal, to be an independent filmmaker, to go from project to project, to not have a set job. I never really want to be the type of guy that has a 9 to 5. I mean, it's going to happen. So that's the end goal. Disney right now, I just love the environment. I love the hospitality field. It's kind of in the entertainment realm in some degree. But my dream goal one day is just be an independent filmmaker and just make films and just write a lot. And that's what I've been doing. I'm just coming up with films or screenplays that I really, really think are either going to work for me, or I just like making content. So,
well, both of you guys are film students from Seton Hall. Obviously, we've all just been talking about it. So I would like to know from the two of you, as I was a TV major, you both were film, how was your experience working in the digital cinema classes? Like, how has that led to your experience now as to, wanting to work in the film side? I'm not sure if you two were in the same DC class, but I'd love to hear both of your guys' experiences in it.
We never were. We were only in a couple of media studies classes, unfortunately. But I would say, I mean, it was a roller coaster, up and downs. Your DC 1 and 2, kind of amateur, you're getting into it. But I would say the epitome of my college production, experience was in our Professor Pace's Blood and Tears production that was in November. I was just like a unit production manager. Tommy, I think you were like one of the DPs. And it was very professional, even though it was very small. It was a very professional shoot. I still haven't seen the end cut. I'm not sure if he's saving it for, film festivals. I don't know what happened with,
He's not done with it yet. I could tell you that from experience.
But I mean, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's stressful. You have to get up early. It's long hours, but it's rewarding. So I would say I really enjoyed almost every film that I shot, every short film that I shot, or anything that I helped out in.
Yeah, and you said you really enjoyed the pre-production and post-production experience. I was the one that really enjoyed the production experience. Being on that set for Blood and Tears, I was mostly cinematographer for that, both for the principal shoots and the reshoots. Getting to work with the lovely girls that I had in DC 3 and 4, all of them, we became a family, just like I became a family with a lot of the PTV people. And it was really nice to go week in and week out trying to create each other's projects. I think it was a lot of fun working together, trying to figure out different problems and solve different projects together. And I mean, in the long run, I've always loved being behind the camera, and I see that in the future. I could never be a director personally. There's just so much to micromanage and everything like that. It's definitely a skill that someone has to have. I feel like my skills are best toted for behind the camera as a DP or cinematographer. And one question I'd like to wrap up with, and this is something I asked Veronica for last week's video, was what's something you would want to improve with on the media space? I mean, there's so many things that, I mean, you were a great editor, especially for our time at PTV. You really helped a lot of us learn different things, understand rhythm and timing of different shots. You say you really like writing. Are those something that you would want to master those, or try to complete full circle a well-rounded filmmaker?
I want to master screenwriting and editing. I think to go into the film world, it's great to be well-rounded, but they really want someone who's a master at editing. So I would say right now, I'm past amateur, but I'm not even close to professional. I just got Final Cut Pro because Adobe and Final Cut Pro have been going at it in terms of what they have to offer. And I still have the MacBook Air, so it's a very, very small processing system. But I just want to get more technological. I want to understand computers a lot more. I just want to understand the whole process of editing, what to buy then versus what not to buy, and just I want to know After Effects a lot better. I want to perfect editing, to a T. And in terms of production, I think the only thing that I would really want to understand more is just camera work and, camera angles and just, reintroduce that to myself. Because unfortunately the DC classes, it was a little rushed because you have to go straight towards the projects. Mm-hmm. So I want to reintroduce that. And writing, it's just watching more movies and reading more scripts. And I think just reading actually helps your screenwriting purposes. So those are the two, editing and writing. I'm on the editing track right now because I want to just make fun little content stuff, projects. So that's what I'm up to right now.
Well, that's great. And this is really the time to do it with it being quarantine, a lot of free time under your belt. But that'll do it for this conversation. Frank, it was really genuinely nice to talk to you again. It's been since you've graduated that we've talked somewhat in person. So it was really a pleasure and an honor to talk to you again. Thank you for coming on. Chris, thank you for being my co-host. And guys, please like and subscribe to this video. I really appreciate you guys watching week in and week out, and we'll talk to you soon.